Hello and welcome back to Over My Dead Pod. I'm Holly Spear.
This is Kate Carter.
And I'm Kylie Colwell.
Today I am your host, and I'm going to be telling the girls a story that you've probably heard, but maybe in a different way. And maybe you have heard it as well. We've probably all heard of the Cecil Hotel.
Ooh.
Kylie, yeah.
Shit. Yes,
Yeah.
we know it. We know it.
If you've heard of the Cecil Hotel, you've probably heard of the mysterious death of Elisa Lamb. And today, yes, I'm going to tell you the story of 22-year-old Elisa Lamb, the girl who would be found dead in the worst place ever, the Cecil Hotel. But I'm also going to tell you the story, the whole dark story and twisted history of the Cecil Hotel.
This is a good one.
Thank you.
I will say this is a good one. Now, there's a lot of, because this is unsolved, right?
Well, no, I mean, it is technically been ruled a certain way,
Yeah.
but it is still what people would consider, what a lot of people consider a mysterious death. There's a lot of conspiracies about it. A lot of people who don't believe
Hmm.
it's
That's what
really,
I meant. It's been
yeah.
solved technically, but
Yes.
it's not to us.
Yes. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of other deaths in the Cecil Hotel that are technically solved, but kind of are slightly questionable. So let's get into it. The Cecil Hotel opened its doors December 20th, 1924, and it started off as a luxury hotel when it first opened its doors in LA, California. It's 14 floors and it has 700 rooms. And it was built by three men named William Banks Hammer, Charles L. Dix, and Robert H. Shoops. And they invested about 2.5 million into the building of the hotel, which for that time is a crap ton of money. I mean, that's a lot for the time. I think it ended up being they all invested 2.5 and it ended up being well over a million to construct it.
I wonder what that conversion rate is now.
Oh my gosh, I bet
A
it's
lot. Yeah.
the wazoo. And the hotel was actually designed by a Mr. Loy Lester Smith, and the style was considered Art Deco. And for that time, the hotel was fancy, fancy, fancy. It had marble flooring in the lobby, stained glass windows, palm trees, alabaster sanctuaries. It had this amazing grand lobby. It was just really ahead of its time. The original intended purpose of the hotel was to be a destination for business travels and tourists. It was marketed as the hotel of choice because at this time, LA was just like a very booming city. It had population that was quickly increasing. Many people were working there, moving there, etc. Even though the Great Depression started wreaking havoc on the United States at this time, the hotel was still seen as a pretty luxury destination and held on through the early 40s. However, shortly after, the Cecil would decline as LA saw a boom of homeless population in the thousands, and that would have been the effects of the Great Depression. The area where the Cecil was located would transform into what is now known as Skid Row. Skid Row, for most people who don't know, is a neighborhood in downtown LA, and it makes up about 50 blocks. Now, Skid Row accommodates one of the largest stable populations of homeless and transient people. In the late 30s and early 40s, around 10,000 homeless people lived within its 0.4 mile radius. Today, Skid Row houses about 4,400 people. And that could be way underestimating because there's limited data on people that live there. They're in and out. There's not like nobody's going down there recording censuses, I don't think, it's kind of rough out there. So and the Hotel Cecil is right in the heart of Skid Row, and it obviously took its toll on the once luxury hotel. In 2008, a portion of the hotel was refurbished when new owners bought the hotel. And in 2011, the Cecil was rebranded as the Stay on Main. So it was kind of weirdly split up into like a Cecil section of the hotel and then a Stay on Main. And this name change was kind of in an effort to stray away from the reputation that the hotel was getting. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a second, but the hotel was becoming a pretty eerie, dark place. Then in 2014, the hotel was sold to a New York City hotelier, Richard Bourne, for $30 million. Also, never heard of that term before, but apparently it is a thing, and Kylie knows about it. So
It's a fancy thing.
it is a very fancy thing. After that, Richard Bourne sold to a New York-based development company called the Simon Barron Development. The president of Simon Barron Development was Matt Barron, who announced that he was committed to the preservation of the hotel. He was going to work to preserve the architectural history of the building, and they planned to completely redevelop the interior. The Cecil closed for renovations in 2017. Also in 2017, the Los Angeles City Council voted to declare the Cecil a historic cultural monument. But then, as COVID happened, while renovations were still happening, this caused the Cecil to suspend its renovations indefinitely. In 2021, the hotel reopened as an affordable housing complex operated by the Skid Row Housing Trust. The Cecil would provide affordable living for 600 low-income residents. And I think that this is kind of because the Cecil was basically just like a closed down huge building in the middle of Skid Row. And here's all these homeless people needing a place to live. So they kind of opened the doors and started low income housing there, because what else are you to do with a building that nobody wants to really stay in?
Good for them for doing that, though.
Yeah, no, I think it's positive.
Honestly, had no idea it was this like big, fancy hotel. I just always thought it was a decrepit slum hostel type place.
Right, right. I mean, and I used a lot of different sources to find information about it, but one of the things that I'm sure everybody has seen is the documentary on Netflix about it.
Mhm.
And they talk a little bit about how, for its time, it was like an amazing hotel. And even still today, they keep the lobby really, really pretty. And tourists from like other countries have accidentally like booked hotel rooms here, not knowing how dangerous it is or how bad of a spot that it is. They've like booked rooms, come down here and been like, whoa, what the hell's going on? Because the lobby looks amazing. The pictures outside look decent. It looks like a good deal. And they're like, okay, cool. It's like once you get past the lobby, it's like, good luck, Charlie.
Got catfish.
VRBO from hell. So in 2023, the LA Times wrote an article about the hotel. It described its rundown conditions. They described black mold, rat infestations, water leaks, graffiti, vandalism, and very, very unsanitary conditions. At this time, many residents of the hotel were former Skid Row homeless, and many visitors that needed help, like medical, mental, substance abuse treatment, things like that. And in 2024, the owners of the hotel listed the hotel for sale. So, like I said in the beginning, today I'm going to give you the dark history of the Cecil. And the dark past of this hotel does not just begin with Skid Row. The killings and the deaths associated with this hotel begin years after it was built and pretty consistently continue into the 2000s. The Cecil Hotel would be the site of, at the very least, 16 sudden or unexplained deaths. And that doesn't include the like overdoses and things like that. The Cecil even became a frequent spot for people to commit suicide, unfortunately. Out of the 16 deaths, 9 were declared suicides, but some of those are a little questionable. Out of respect for the victims of the suicides that were committed in the hotel, I'm only going to give you like brief facts about their deaths, and then I will go into more detail about the deaths that were ruled suicides but are considered kind of questionable. So to tell all these stories, we're going to start at the beginning. The first suicide occurred November 1931. A 46-year-old man went missing from his home in Manhattan Beach. His body would be found by a maid in a room at the Cecil Hotel. The man had checked in the hotel using a fake name, James Willies, and claimed that he was from Chicago. He stayed at the hotel for a week before ingesting capsules containing poison, and the police would find more capsules in his vest pocket. September 1932. Less than a year later, another man would be found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. No one was able to provide an explanation as to why he might have wanted to die, and he didn't leave any kind of suicide note. July 1934, a former Army Medical Corps sergeant was found dead in his room at the Cecil. The 53-year-old sergeant had slit his own throat with a razor. The man left several notes, and one of the notes explained that he no longer wished to live due to his declining health. March 1937. Grace Margot fell from a ninth-story window. Her fall was broken by a telephone wire. The wires wrapped around her body, and she was rushed to the hospital. But she was pronounced dead after unsuccessful attempts to save her life. Police and examiners were unable to determine whether her death was due to an accidental fall or if Grace had jumped from the window intending to end her own life. January of 1938, a man checked into the hotel and stayed several weeks, never giving any rise to any suspicion that anything was wrong. But then one day, the 35-year-old man walked up to the top 14th floor of the hotel and jumped out of the window and landed on the skylight of the building next door. May 1939, a former Navy officer was found dead in his room after ingesting poison. January 1940, a female teacher checked into the Cecil under the fake name Evelyn Brent. Unfortunately, she ingested poison after sending relatives a note indicating that she was going to end her life. She was found unconscious but still breathing in her hotel room. She was rushed to the hospital but arrived dead. September 1944, Dorothy Jean Purcell and shoe salesman Ben Levine checked into the Cecil. Dorothy was 19 and Ben was 38. They were sharing a room. It doesn't really say what the relationship between the two were, but you can just assume what you will. One night after Ben fell asleep, Dorothy woke up with pain in her lower abdomen. Not wanting to disturb Ben, she quickly got up and went to the restroom. To her astonishment, she found out that she was in labor. She did not know she was pregnant, and she gave birth right there in the bathroom while Ben was asleep in the next room. Dorothy believed the baby had been born stillborn, but then for some reason, Dorothy just threw the baby boy out of the hotel window. And
Oh,
the baby landed on the building next door.
I have a feeling that baby wasn't stillborn.
Yeah, I also feel like the baby was not stillborn if she did that. That's nuts. Oh my God.
The baby was soon discovered, and Dorothy was arrested for murder. During her trial, Dorothy testified that after giving birth and not even realizing she was pregnant, that she was, quote, mentally confused. She had 3 psychiatrists testify that she was mentally confused at the time. And in 1945, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't think that would work today. I'm just going to say,
I don't
I
think it would work. I would also be very mentally confused if that happened to me, but I would like to think that I would not throw the baby out the freaking window.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'd probably have a mental break, but I don't even think I would think about throwing it out. I don't even think that's something that would, I don't know.
Don't you think that would maybe push it more that she was mentally unstable? The fact that she did do that.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
also didn't mentally realize that she was pregnant. I don't understand, but that is a thing that happens where people all the time, not normal, but people every year have babies that did not know they were pregnant. And as someone who has gone through being pregnant, I can't understand that. Like that blows my mind. So to then have the baby with no drugs, couldn't imagine that cave woman era.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've never been there, so, who am I to say? But that is what happened. Then, November 1947, a 35-year-old man jumped out of the 7th floor window. Also in 1947, one of the most famous unsolved mysteries occurred in American history, and this was the death of Elizabeth Short, aka the Black Dahlia. Elizabeth was an inspiring actress from Boston, and her body would be found in the Leimert Park. Her body had been mutilated, and she had been bisected at the waist. I had to look up what that was. And this is going to get graphic, but I want to tell you just a little bit about this. Her body had been completely drained of blood. You've probably heard of this case if you're really into true crime, but for those of you that haven't, trigger warning. Her body had been completely drained of blood and washed. Her face had been slashed from the corners of her ears, from ear to ear, creating a smile. She had cuts on her thighs and breast where entire portions of flesh had been sliced away. The lower half of her body was positioned neatly a foot away from the upper half, and her intestines had been tucked neatly beneath her buttocks. The corpse had been positioned, and the police only found a heel print on the ground and watery blood nearby. This is just Every time, I mean, I've obviously heard of this case before, but every time I relook at it or relook at facts, I'm just like, what the actual, you know?
It's a gnarly case.
I mean, holy crap.
Yeah. No, it's not good. And she was super young too.
Beautiful. She was
Yeah,
beautiful.
gorgeous.
No, it's like a Criminal Minds type crime scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, something that sounds completely made up. It's just, geez. But to this day, no one has been arrested. A few days before her murder, it was reported that she had been seen at no other than the Cecil Hotel at the bar. So, a little
Oh.
fun fact for you thrown in there. October 1954, a San Francisco stationery firm employee jumped from the window again from the seventh floor and landed on top of the Cecil's marquee. She had stayed at the Cecil for a week and had checked in under a fake name, Margaret Brown. February 1962, a 50-year-old woman jumped from the window of the eighth floor and landed on the second story interior light well of the building, and she did not leave a suicide note. October 1962, a young woman named Pauline Otto was arguing with her husband, and her husband was named Dewey Otto, and he ended up leaving the hotel room after the argument and slammed the door behind him. So Pauline was so distraught that she jumped from the ninth floor window of her hotel room. Pauline would jump and land on an unsuspecting pedestrian who was just walking by, George Gianni, age 27.
He died, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's
Oh
no
my
way.
God.
So this killed him and her on impact.
Can we also talk about really quickly the fact that a lot of deaths are related to the Cecil Hotel, but a lot of the jump ones are all from the ninth floor.
Yeah. Us, isn't it?
Just a fun fact.
I know. Do we believe her husband slammed the door and left and then she jumped off the building?
I
Who
never
knows?
did that, but
Who are we to say? But that sounds a little sus to me.
suspicious.
The
Yep.
fact that we're not even into like 2000 yet, we were already
Yeah.
going through all of these.
In the beginning of this one, police thought that Otto and Gianni had committed suicide together because they were just like, found together. It was confusing because there was no witnesses to this event. However, the truth was quickly discovered when police found out that the man had died with his hands in his pocket and he was still wearing his shoes. So had he jumped, obviously his shoes would have been thrown as a result of him hitting the ground, and his hands wouldn't have just been in his pockets just by, obvious reasons. So this was a suicide murder, probably one of the only ones of its kind. I don't know. There's probably other histories of that, but very rare. June 4th, 1964, 59-year-old Goldie Osgood, otherwise known as Pigeon Goldie, stayed at the Cecil Hotel. Goldie is a telephone operator, and this is a job held by many young women at the time. An operator is in charge of manually switching the switchboard and connecting the telephone caller to each other caller by plugging in a ringing cable into a destination jack. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm too young for that. I mean, I know that they did have switchboards. I've like heard of that, but I'm sorry,
I just know when you read that, you went down like a rabbit hole trying to figure out what the hell all of that meant.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? Actually, I mean, in my head, I was like, I don't know what that means. I probably should figure out what that means. And I was like, you know what? No, I just, there's no hope. I'm too young to know what that is. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get a lot of hate for saying that one.
Oh, I know. I will. I mean, anyways, okay. It's not known if Pigeon Goldie is married or if she had children, but at this time, Goldie was at the Cecil alone. Goldie was well known in the area because she could often be seen hanging out around Pershing Square, which is a park in downtown LA, feeding the birds, which is how she got her nickname, Pigeon Goldie. It's so cute. She would feed the birds that were really small and the ones that like couldn't forage for themselves, like that didn't get the scraps that all the other birds did. She could be seen standing for hours feeding these little birds and chasing away larger birds, ensuring that the small, weak, and sick got fed. She would chat with everyone that she came into contact with at the park, and she was very popular, very social in the town. She was very well known and very well liked within her circle and at her job. Goldie was actually a long-term resident of the hotel at the time, and she was living there, which was not uncommon for people of her age. Her salary would have been really small, and it would have been difficult for her to buy a home at the time. And if she did have no husband, she would have probably struggled to support herself on her salary. The Cecil at this time offered long-term stays where tenants could stay for longer periods at a deal. And there was a lot of other tenants doing the same thing at the Cecil at the time. Goldie's day on June 4th, 1964 was like every other day. Goldie came home to the Cecil and greeted her fellow tenants and walked to her room. And then only an hour later, a hotel worker would discover Goldie's body in her room. Also, with her in the ransacked room, police found an LA Dodgers baseball cap that she always wore and a paper sack full of birdseed. Because the attack happened so quickly, it was possible that the attacker had broken into Goldie's room beforehand and was just like sitting and waiting for her to return, which is terrifying. And the attack would have been so quick and efficient since no one in this busy hotel would have noticed anything. So it would have had to been super fast. People were shocked because they'd seen Goldie just about an hour ago, and now she's been brutally assaulted, beaten, and stabbed.
Like the saddest one yet.
I know. The hotel worker called the police, and it only took a few hours for police to arrest 29-year-old Jacques B. Eleanor. And this was because Eleanor was found roaming Pershing Square wearing clothes that were soaked in blood. So pretty bad vibes. Red
flag.
Right. He was arrested and charged with the murder. But later, for reasons that police have not discussed publicly, he was ruled out as a suspect. Police only cited a, quote, lack of evidence. Goldie's death was connected to other crimes in the area, but these leads never developed into anything. This was from a medical examiner who came forward finding similarities in an exam that he had done on a woman named Miss Vivian Brown. Vivian had been murdered a couple months before Goldie, but she was also 50 years old, so around the same age as Goldie, and the manner of killing had been similar. She was also staying in a hotel in the same area as the Cecil. There has never been any arrests made in either case. December 1975, an unidentified woman jumped from the 12th floor, landing on the second floor roof. She had checked in under a fake name, Allison Lowell, and she was staying in room 327. The next one, another famous one for you. Hauntingly, in 1985, serial killer Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker, checked into the Cecil for a few weeks. And I won't go into all of the details of the Night Stalker killings, one, because that would take forever since he has been convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault, and 14 counts of burglary. And 2, because someone on this podcast may want to cover him at some point. So we're not going into him today, but to sum up, Richard Ramirez was a Satanist and was known for his horrifically brutal killings. He terrorized LA and the San Francisco Bay Area from 1984 to 1985. He would break into homes in the middle of the night to rape, kill, and burglarize his victims. He would use guns, knives, machetes, tire irons, even hammers to kill his victims. We know that after the killings of at least some of his victims, Ramirez would seek a safe haven at no other than the Cecil Hotel. This was during the time when the Cecil Hotel was at its lowest, and a former resident of the hotel described the hotel as, quote, lawless. It was a place that was so chaotic, even serial killers felt comfortable calling it home. It was said that Ramirez was seen in the middle of the night out in the open of the back alley, covered in blood, shedding his clothes before coming inside to rest. Like, that's how rough the Cecil is at this time, that people obviously like saw this and didn't even report it or think that much about it, obviously.
Either they're like very used to this happening, which is concerning, or they thought, oh, I'm next.
Yeah, like I better keep my mouth shut.
This guy's my neighbor.
Yeah. He was renting a room on the 14th floor for $14 a night at the time. As far as we know, Ramirez didn't bring any of his victims back to his hotel room at the Cecil, but it just kind of remained a safe little place for him to return after killing his victims. The Cecil was a safe place for another serial killer in the 90s, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger. Jack killed between 10 to 12 women in Austria, West Germany, and Czechoslovakia, and the US. Initially, Jack was convicted in 1974 of a single murder, and after he began to write while in prison, he gained some attention of many Austrian literary elite. And the writers, for some reason, believed that this showed that he was rehabilitated. So they lobbied to have him released, I guess, so he could just write his little heart out. And while on parole, he went right back to killing and murdered 10 to 12 more people.
Wait, so they thought he can't possibly continue being a serial killer because he can write good?
He's a very good writer. Did you just hear, like, he's good at writing. He didn't,
He,
he's rehabilitated. He's not going to kill anybody else.
he doesn't have time to kill anybody. He's writing and he's editing. Nice.
He's an artiste.
We all know artists are
Yeah.
completely sane people.
Yeah. Smart people are not serial killers, obviously.
Obviously not.
So 3 of the 10 to 12 were strangled to death while he was living at the Cecil Hotel. September 1992, the body of an African American man was found in the alley behind the hotel, and he was between the ages of 20 to 30 years old. Police say that he had either fallen, jumped, or been pushed from the hotel 15th floor, which sounds like an important distinction. Did he jump? Did he fall, or was he pushed? But I digress. With all that being said, I'm also going to say that back in the 80s, a resident of the Cecil said, quote, "I would never go further than the 6th floor. Usually the higher floors of the Cecil is where people used to get killed. Once they got a guy in the room, they would rob him, beat him up, and throw him out the window. So if you didn't watch yourself, you might come flying out of there with no wings." So saying that after all of the jumps and suicides that I told you about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, there's no, especially some of those earlier ones, there's no like electronic locks on the doors. Like there's no key cards. There's no security cameras. So yeah, it would be like a lawless place.
Yeah, very. So this leads us to the most famous case in the Cecil's history, and the case that made the Cecil Hotel a famous name in today's society, and that is the mysterious death of Elisa Lam. Now, Elisa Lam is the victim from the Cecil Hotel that has the most information about her. So we'll begin at the beginning. Elisa Lam was born in Canada in 1991 to her parents David and Yona, who were immigrants from Hong Kong, and they owned a restaurant there. At this time, Elisa is 21 years old and she's a student at British Columbia. It's 2013, and Elisa has decided that she's going to take a gap year from school and take a solo trip around the west coast of the US. Elisa felt that she needed a break. She was excited about her trip and just kind of needed a break from college, a break from the normal life. She probably thought it was going to be a trip about self-reflection, some time alone. Elisa's parents were not very excited for their daughter in the sense that they were very nervous about her traveling by herself. But her parents knew that she was grown. She was going to do what she wanted to do in the end. I mean, she's in college. She's 21 years old. They can't actually stop her. And she promised that she would call them every day and check in. Elisa did just that most of the trip. She started off January 22nd in San Diego, California, and she was traveling by Amtrak and using the city bus to get around. She started by visiting the San Diego Zoo, and she posted pictures on her social media. What social media did she have at that time, you might ask? Well, Elisa had a blog spot and a Tumblr. Did y'all tumble? Did y'all Tumblr?
I still have a Tumblr. I pulled mine up. The last thing I reblogged it's a screenshot of a tweet, but it says, "I wonder if the Spy Kids ever tortured anyone for information. They were very active in US counterintelligence in the early to mid 2000s, so I think it's naive to think they weren't aware of the tactics."
Okay, so Kylie was always meant to go to law school.
That is very Kylie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tumblr. So anyways, we know what Elisa did on her first day. She's like blogging all of it. She's posting about it. I'm not sure where she stayed the night in San Diego, but she stayed somewhere there before traveling to LA the next day. I'm also not sure where she stayed the night for her first night in LA, but on the second night, she checked into the Cecil Hotel. And at this time, we're well into the times of Skid Row. This is a rough area. We know that Elisa is trying to spend the least amount of money to like kind of stretch it out throughout her trip. We know that she had been saving for this trip. She's been like got a job, just for the trip. I don't think her parents are giving her money. They don't really want her to go. So she's roughing it out there, you know. But I have to assume that Elisa had no idea what she was getting herself into by booking a hotel on Skid Row. Or maybe she saw it before she checked in, but didn't really realize truly how dangerous it was, or didn't know the dark history of the Cecil. Elisa was initially assigned to a shared room on the fifth floor. I didn't know up until this point that the Cecil did like shared rooms, but it seemed like it was kind of a normal thing. Elisa was rooming with some other girls, but Elisa moved when the other girls complained about her. According to Amy Price, who was the manager of the Cecil Hotel in the stay on Main at the time, she said that Elisa was leaving notes for her roommates that said go home or go away, and she would lock the door to the room and require a password for entry. Why she was doing this was unclear. We don't know. And you could maybe chalk this up to young drama or the fact that it would be hard to room with someone random for a couple nights in a random hotel. But the other girls basically didn't want Elisa in their room anymore. And they told the front desk. And after 2 days with the roommates, the hotel ended up changing her to a room of her own.
Not saying that she did this, but that would be a good way to scam your way into your own room for free.
Oh my gosh. I was actually thinking that when I was writing this. I was like, yeah,
Okay, good. It's not just me.
nope. I mean, honestly, like I would absolutely hate to share a room with random people. I would do just about anything to get the hell out of there, you know?
Same.
Maybe she's really smart. I don't know. Elisa was scheduled to check out of the Cecil on January 31st, 2013, and would be leaving for Santa Cruz. But Elisa would never check out. This was also the day that her parents stopped hearing from her. When Elisa did not check in, her parents immediately knew something was not right because Elisa had been very consistently calling every day. So immediately they called the LA Police Department and they actually flew that day to LA to help with the search. Police obviously start their search at the Cecil Hotel. They interviewed the staff and residents of the hotel and found out that the hotel staff did see Elisa that day and said that she was alone. Police discovered that actually the last place that she went was a bookstore called The Last Bookstore. The manager, Katie Orphan, was the only one that saw her there. She told police that Elisa seemed very normal. She was lively and friendly, and that Elisa even told her that she was getting gifts to take home to her family. She was talking about the books that she was going to get, whether or not they would be too heavy for her to carry around for the rest of her trip. It was a very normal interaction. Police searched the hotel to the extent that they legally could, but police would need a search warrant for each individual room if the occupant was not willing to comply in letting the officer search their space, which I didn't really appreciate until I read that. You would have to have a search warrant for each individual room. It's very impossible. So based off what we know about the residents of the Cecil at the time, there's lots of drugs, prostitution, crime. Not exactly the place that you're inviting the cops in to come search your room. There's 700 rooms at the Cecil, and police couldn't search them. They did search all the public areas of the hotel. They even brought in search dogs, and they had the dogs go through the building, including the rooftop, lobby, and hallways. But I guess if one of the dogs would have alerted to any of the rooms, police probably could have probable cause to search the room. So there's no report that this happened, that they alerted to one room. So I have to assume that the dogs didn't alert to any of the resident rooms, just based off of the lack of information. I could not be right, but that's just what I was thinking. In addition, the dogs didn't alert to any of the common areas like the lobbies, hallways, or rooftops. Police pretty much had hit a dead end after a few days, and on February 6th, a week after, the LAPD posted flyers with Elisa's face all over the neighborhood and online, which I don't know, seems like something you would do first few days, but I don't know, I'm not an investigator. And this did work in bringing some attention to the case through the media, but not enough to create any credible tips or leads for the police. And so then on February 13th, after another week of no leads, the LAPD released a video of the last known sighting of Elisa taken by one of the Cecil's elevator cameras on January 31st. And let me just tell you,
Very famous video.
very famous and very freaking creepy to me. It's very unsettling, and that's why it's famous. It's been analyzed by so many people, and I'm sure that y'all have probably seen it, but I'm gonna make you watch it again. And if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. We will link it in the show notes and it'll be on our website because you have to see this video. So I'm going to send it to Kate and Kylie really quick to refresh their recollection. So the video doesn't have any sound. It's about 2 minutes long. Elisa can be seen walking calmly until the elevator gets in there. She presses a bunch of buttons, like right down the line of buttons. And this is not like a lobby elevator. This is an elevator on the floor of the hotel. So like one of the floors, and you don't see, there's no one behind her. There's no one in front of the elevator. There's just like a wall. She doesn't really look upset or startled at first. She crouches down, presses all the buttons. She moves kind of to the back corner of the elevator, like she's trying to get kind of far away from the entrance and kind of like she's hiding from someone. That's what a lot of people theorize. She quickly pokes her head out of the elevator and kind of like almost jumps out of the elevator to look around the hallway, like she's checking to see if someone's around. And then after that, her mood kind of changes. She seems to get a little bit more anxious. She presses her back against the wall and then gets into the back corner of the elevator, or I guess actually the front corner of the elevator. So like if you peered into the elevator, you wouldn't see her. And that's, I think, why a lot of people say that she's hiding. You never see anybody else in the frame of the camera. You only see Elisa. She then peeks outside the elevator doors again. She looks around. She steps completely out of the elevator, like she's trying to check and make sure no one's there. She does some weird like hand gestures, motions, some very strange, eerie things with her hands. She steps back into the elevator, and you can tell at this point she's really on edge. She then presses a bunch of buttons to a bunch of floors. She exits the elevator, and then actually the doors close behind her. And this is the very last sighting of Elisa Lam.
I mean, honestly, like looking at that video, I feel like I've seen it a million times, but each time I feel like I see something new. She's tripping. She's tripping on something. My only explanation for that video, because she's acting so weird, she's totally acting as if she's tripping on something. Yeah.
Like the hand movements.
Right. And people are like, she's hiding from someone. No, I totally think she's tripping. I think she's tripping.
No, that's my biggest thing. Everyone's like, oh, she's hiding from someone. That's why she's like hiding in the corner. But the first thing she does when she gets in the elevator is she hits like several buttons, and then the door stays open for like over 2 minutes of the video. Like if you're running or hiding from someone when you hit like closed door.
Yeah. I read somewhere that somebody like went and saw the elevator, stuff like that. One of the buttons that she was hitting was the open elevator button. And apparently at the Cecil, the open elevator buttons stay open for like 2 minutes. So that would kind of make sense. So it doesn't make any sense why the door's never closed. But I 100% think she was tripping on something.
I have a theory. I'm assuming she's not under the influence. I think we'll get to that. I don't remember. Or if she's in some sort of psychosis and she hits all these buttons, she accidentally hits or doesn't mean to hit the like open door button. And then that's why she starts acting all weird, is that she doesn't realize it's going to stay open for 2 minutes, because why would it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if she's obviously not in the right state of mind already, that might be super confusing to her.
Yeah, I mean, even if I was in my right mind, I would still be like confused and probably like talking to myself in my head, maybe even making hand gestures, because I do that sometimes. Like when I'm talking, I'm like, what the heck, what's it going to close, and she's almost waving her arms around. And what I thought was in the beginning, I thought that she's trying to wave like her hands around the motion sensor of the doors. Like, are they going to close? I just got in. She does get out of the elevator and like she keeps doing those motions. So I was like, oh, okay. That's not what she's doing. So it's just very confusing. There's tons of different theories about it. The video is so creepy to me because it looks like she's kind of scared. Many people find this video very unsettling. It's also been argued that this video has been tampered with before it was made public. And this is because there's confusing timestamps associated with the video, and some claim that the video has been slowed down in places and that there's nearly a minute of the footage that has been removed. Now, yes, this could have been done to like protect the identity of someone who was in the video, or it could be to protect the investigation of someone involved in her disappearance. But the police never comment publicly if the video has been edited. So that's just really just a theory that it has been. In my opinion, I don't know if the police would have released this video and let people think that she's going through some kind of psychosis and theorize all these things if there was another person that they were cutting out of the video.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to release.
Yeah.
At this point, she's still missing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, wouldn't you just release, I don't know, a picture of her? Like a still frame, like, oh, this is what she was last seen wearing?
Yeah, it is a very weird thing to release. And now this is where things get pretty bad. While Lisa was missing, weird things started happening at the Cecil. One of these things was that the hotel guests started complaining about the water pressure. Then guests started complaining about the taste and the look of the water. They said it had turned a brownish color, so it's like coming out of the pipes, this color. So hotel maintenance workers checked the water tanks. There was actually 4 water tanks and they're located on the roof of the hotel. They hold about 1,000 gallons and they're about 8 feet tall and 4 feet around. The worker got a ladder and climbed up to the tank where he pried open the heavy hatch to the tanks, and in the tank with the open hatch, he found a body floating in the tank face up. It was the naked body of Elisa Lam. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office released the cause of death to be accidental drowning. The full report stated that Elisa's body was found naked with clothing similar to what she was wearing in the video, floating in the water beside her, with a quote, sand-like particulate. Her watch and room key was found with her. Her body was pretty decomposed and bloated. There was no evidence of physical trauma on her body or anything that would suggest sexual assault. Toxicology tests showed that she had taken her own prescription medication, the same medication that police found in her belongings, plus a sinus medication and ibuprofen. There was also a small quantity of alcohol present, but no recreational drugs. Now, this brings up what we haven't talked about, and that is Elisa Lam's medical issues. Elisa Lam was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and she'd been prescribed several medications. According to Elisa's family, she kept her mental illness pretty private, but she had no history of suicidal ideations or history of attempted suicides, although there was one report that claimed that she had previously gone missing for a brief period. Lam did have a history of not taking her bipolar medications, and as a result, it was reported that this caused her to have hallucinations on a few occasions. And she was hospitalized at least once for one of these 3 episodes. Elisa began a blog where she posted mostly about fashionable clothing, famous models, and things in her life, but she also used it as an outlet to discuss her struggles with mental illness. In January 2012, a post she titled Relapse, she explained that her illness had caused her to drop several classes, leaving her feeling, quote, so utterly directionless and lost. She titled in another post, You're always haunted by the idea that you're wasting your life. The coroner noted that the concentration of her prescription drugs in her system should have been higher, and this indicated that she was not taking her bipolar medication. So this may explain the odd behavior of Elisa in the elevator, and explain this freak accident. It's possible that Elisa was having a psychotic episode due to not taking her medications, and she was hallucinating. She got onto the roof, climbed into the water tank, and jumped inside. When she couldn't climb out, she eventually died by drowning. However, this does not answer all of the questions that people in the media would ask. First, the investigation had determined how Elisa died. Obviously, she drowned, but it didn't answer how or why she had gotten into the tank in the first place. The door to the roof was locked, and the stairs that she would have used to access the roof were also locked. Only the staff had the passwords and keys, and any attempt to open the door or use the stairs would have triggered an alarm, and no alarms were triggered that day. The hotels did have a fire escape that Elisa could have technically used to climb to the roof. And I will also add that I did see a report where the dogs that were sniffing did pick up a scent trail, and it was lost near a window that did connect to the fire escape. But another question, how did she get into this tank? This is probably my biggest problem, the thing that I don't understand and I can't visualize. Tanks are like 4x8 cylinders. They're really freaking tall, and they're actually propped up on even more cinder blocks. So There's no access to them. There was no ladder connecting the tanks, no permanent connection of a ladder to the tanks. So there's really no way that Elisa could have climbed up in them. Workers had to like bring a ladder to even look inside of the water. And the lid to the tank was apparently like very, very heavy. And it would have been really hard, but not impossible for Elisa to pry open the lid to the tank.
Say, even if she did walk up to the roof voluntarily somehow without tripping any of the alarms, got up there. Maybe I'm just dumb. I wouldn't think those were water tanks.
I wouldn't either. I would have no idea what they were.
Oh, I'm gonna open them. I'll jump inside. I don't know.
I wouldn't know what they were. I wouldn't know if they were like big heating and cooling systems, water heaters. The psychosis thing, the mental episode that she was having makes complete sense to me. I mean, she's going to do things that don't make sense looking back at them. But for me, it's just like the physical, like, how did she do that? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Next, another issue that the public had was police dogs had just searched the roof of the hotel and they didn't find any trace of Elisa. So some people started theorizing that maybe she was put into the tank afterwards. Sniffing dogs do make mistakes, so take that for what you will, but it adds to the bizarreness of this. Next, people claim that it is possible that Elisa could have been drugged. And although the toxicology report didn't show the presence of recreational drugs, some people claim that the drugs could have been broken down during the period of time that her body was decomposing in the tank. I don't know how this works or if that's medically plausible, but that's what some people say.
It's like Rohypnol or like roofies. Even if you're alive and well, it's not going to show up on your toxicology like a couple hours later.
Yeah, and that's what some people are saying. Like, it just depended on what she was drugged with, if she was drugged. And that could also explain the way that she was acting in the video. Then people claimed that the autopsy was questionable because it was not based on complete information. The autopsy said that there was no sign of sexual assault on her body, but it doesn't say what the results of a rape kit were or if it was even taken. So people had a problem with that. It also doesn't test for the presence of DNA under her fingernails, which would have showed if there was any kind of struggle with someone that she had. It's not stated on the autopsy results, so people assume that they didn't even test for it. There was also pooling of blood in Elisa's anal cavity, which could be a sign of assault. But a pathologist noted later that it could be a result of bloating due to decomposition.
The DNA under the fingernails just could have been because she was in the water. There's nothing to test.
I think people had the biggest problem with that. It didn't seem like that they did at all, like try. But what I find super eerie is that her Tumblr blog was updated after her death. And that's really not what I find the most eerie. The most eerie thing is that her phone was never found with her body or in her hotel room. Some people thought that it was Tumblr had this like option which allowed posts to automatically publish themselves while the user was away, so like kind of update themselves. I didn't know about that feature, but people say that it exists.
I can confirm you can schedule posts on Tumblr.
Okay, cool. Okay, there you go. From a Tumblr expert herself, Kylie says you can do that. Police have not answered whether they know how this happened or not. It could be somebody with her phone, it could be that someone stole her phone, or that her account was hacked, or just that she had on that option that would automatically update it. I just find it so weird that her phone is not found. Very odd to me. She's somebody who always has her phone with her. Police are able to track everywhere that she was going before she disappeared because she always had her phone with her. I mean, I guess that, you know, if you take it back to the episode that she was having, she might have forgotten her phone somewhere, left it somewhere. It could have fallen off the roof and somebody stole it, picked it up off the ground. We don't know.
Like sometimes it's like the most common answer is probably it. And it's probably just that she lost it.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty likely. Finally, why was Elisa found naked? It's at least physically possible that Elisa could have climbed to the top of this tank, taken off her clothes, and jumped in the tank. And I guess she would have had to throw her clothes in first, throw them into the tank, because they were found inside of the tank floating with her.
If she got in the tank, I don't know, in her mind, going for a swim, started to drown, I feel like I would take off my clothes in order, because, you know, they they get heavy like when you're wet in the water and stuff. I would take off my clothes
Mhm.
to maybe
Yeah.
get out. I don't know.
No, yeah, I think that's possible too. I actually feel like that's more possible than her throwing her clothes in there.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go for a swim. I'm gonna take my clothes off, but I'm gonna throw them in the water.
Yeah, like I don't want them to get wet, so I'm gonna take them off my body, so I'm just gonna throw them in. So in September 2013, Elisa's parents sued the Cecil Hotel for wrongful death. They claimed that the hotel failed to inspect and seek out hazards in the hotel that presented an unreasonable risk of danger to Elisa Lam and other hotel guests. They sought unspecified damages and burial costs. The hotel then claimed that they were not negligent in causing the death of Elisa Lam because it was not foreseeable that Elisa could have entered the water tank. Further, because it was unknown how Elisa even got into the tank, the family couldn't even claim that they were negligent and could not assign liability to them. In 2015, the suit was dismissed, and the family received no money for their suit. So, another really creepy fact about this case that people started talking about was the similarities of this Elisa Lam case and a 1996 Japanese film. Now, this film is about a mother and daughter that move into a rundown apartment building. In the apartment, the elevator doesn't work, and brown water starts gushing from the building's faucets. This leads to the discovery of the body of a young girl who's found in the building's rooftop water tank. This was 1996, so well before this.
Also, can we just talk about, because I watched the documentary about this on Netflix a while ago. When the guests were talking about the brown water that they drink, I like physically gagged.
No, it haunted me for forever. I mean, I think about it to this day, and I watched it when it first came out on Netflix, which was, I guess, a few years ago now,
Mm.
and I could not quit thinking about it.
Oh no, I'm always checking the water.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I mean, it kind of is, I would say, a small Roman Empire of mine because anytime there's like something weird with the water, I'm like, what if there's something in it,
If
you
there's
know?
what if there's a body in my water tank?
I can't. I just can't. I mean, it is the most disgusting thing to think about. And I also saw somewhere that these water tanks also supplied a coffee shop that was nearby.
Is that like involuntary cannibalism?
I feel like the residents should have been suing this hotel. Oh
The
my God.
therapy I would need, someone would have to pay for it.
I'd be scarred for life.
I don't even know if I can talk about it.
Disgusting.
Disgusting.
I at this point have a feeling that she probably did have a manic episode, but the fact it happened at the Cecil Hotel and the fact that it went down this way just bugs the shit out of me. How
Yeah.
did she get to the roof? The only people that had access to the doors was with a key or a code or something like that was the employees. Like there was no access to the roof. How did she get in the water tank? There was no ladder to get up to the water tank found nearby. And those things are really tall. Questions I have that won't be answered. So I don't know. Did she have a manic episode and do this? Or did something happen to her from someone else? I don't know. I don't like this case. Like it bothers me. I
Yeah.
think this case in general might be part of my Roman Empire. Like that is something I think about quite often.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, but then there's nothing pointing to anyone else. So that's the weird part.
That's what makes it such a weird case to me. And the fact that it all happened at the Cecil and all these weird things. Like it's just the perfect storm. So up until today, the death of Elisa Lam continues to be deemed an accidental drowning by the LA Police Department. There was no further investigation into the death of the young and vibrant Elisa Lam. And this was not the last death connected to the Cecil, because June 13th, 2015, the body of a 28-year-old man who has not been identified was found outside of the hotel. People believe that he may have fallen or jumped or was pushed from the window of the hotel. Although a spokesperson for the county coroner told the LA Times that the cause of death has not been determined yet. The man remains unidentified to this day.
But that was 2015.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we not like I feel like I'm always suspicious about everything, but like what? That's
I know.
almost years ago. Like, come on.
This hotel has some bad juju.
That makes me think with the guy in 2015, maybe he was one of the homeless people from Skid Row and they literally could not identify him.
Yeah, I mean, that's
No.
probably what it is. The crazy thing is with this hotel is like, yeah, a lot of these things can be blamed on like Skid Row and homeless people, mental health issues and all that. But I mean, you heard all of the deaths related to this hotel way before Skid Row became as it is today.
On a side note too, isn't this the hotel that they're based off of from American Horror Story too on Gaga season?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's been Lady Gaga this whole time, guys.
Phenomenal season too. I loved that.
By the way, this Nightmare of a Hotel is still open today, but it's mostly because it's used for the homeless on Skid Row. Nonprofit teams and volunteers who work there work in the Cecil building frequently. There have been recent renovations made to the 15th floor, which reopened in 2021. Most of the rooms are reserved for tenants in the bottom 30% of the median income and are unhomed. But this housing project still struggles to fill its 600 units despite homelessness increasing. Residents that do live on the property report safety issues, unsanitary conditions, and frequent maintenance issues at the hotel. Also, if you didn't catch that, the Cecil is listed for sale. So yeah, in case you want to go by and visit, this hotel is still up and running. And
girls trip?
should I have my bachelorette there? I'm not engaged, but bachelorette
One day? I think we
Cecil?
should.
I think I'll pass on that one. Skid Row does not sound like a very fun vacation spot, but
We
go,
should
lady.
do one night.
And then one of us dies. Okay.
According to the LA Times, the Cecil is actually searching for new owners. So this ad is sponsored by the Cecil Hotel. I'm just kidding. The new listing does not include an asking price, but the land and improvements were assessed at a total of 31 million in 2023, which I find crazy. What?
It's just a little bit out of our budget.
A little bit. I mean, we could pull our money together. Do we want to own the Cecil, girls?
I think we can maybe buy one room.
Nonprofits that work out of the Cecil Hotel were concerned with the posting of the sale because they use it as a hub for people to get help and services that they need, as well as housing for people on Skid Row. It's left them to have to visit with the residents and assure them that they will not be homeless again. Nonprofits that work on Skid Row hope that whoever buys the Cecil will use the opportunity to invest energy and resources to utilize the building for individuals that they serve. One of these nonprofit programs is called Safe Landing, and it helps people get off the streets and connects them with services, supports, and temporary housing. They also run a medical clinic out of the Cecil. There's also a nonprofit healthcare provider that operates 2 clinics on the ground floor of the Cecil Hotel. So I just want to end this saying that obviously the Cecil is creepy as hell and it's got something wrong with it. It probably needs to be demolished, but just wanted to put that out there that to respect the victims of this horrible tragedy, the victims of the suicides there, the homelessness, addiction, mental health issues, and the people that are living around the Cecil Hotel today. Also, thanks to the people who are working on their own and for these nonprofits that come in and work in these terrible conditions every day to save the lives of people on Skid Row and other places around it like it in the country as we see our homelessness, addiction, and mental health issues rise all around us. And that is a story of the Cecil Hotel.
American Twisty, good job.
So do you guys want to hop into overtime?
Yeah.
And now for the most important question of the day.
It is 2024. The summer is coming. The summer is here. Next month starts the Olympics.
Category of the Olympics should be eliminated.
Yes, and I would like to start this off because I sent the girls a list of all these sports, and I feel like a very obvious answer of a sport to eliminate would be breakdancing, which is sad to say this is the first year that it is an Olympic sport. I'm sorry, but it is stupid. But I have a case to eliminate shooting. And this is because, okay, archery, takes skill, right?
Yeah.
Right. Shooting a gun, I understand, it takes some skill to shoot a gun, get bullseye. I watched this sport during the last Olympics. First off, they all have the same gun. They're all shooting from the same distance every single time. They're all getting bullseyes every single time. And they're just going back and forth until someone happens to make a mistake.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be a sport, but when it's done that way,
Yeah,
like
so
it should be more target practice kind of stuff.
it's like, yeah, the target's not moving. Okay, do the little like clay disc or something. But everything's the exact same every single time. Everyone's a professional at it. It is boring, and I don't think it's fun to watch.
I would also argue and also take back what I'm about to say is table tennis, ping pong. Because if you watch some of the like Balls of Fury and shit like that kind of movies, then you're like, oh, this is a real sport. It is quite entertaining to watch. But
It is.
Is it a sport? It's just a mini version of pickleball.
I don't know, because you watch them, they are they're breaking the sweat.
They're getting
like they're running around the table. Yeah.
I would say out of all of the ones that are happening at the Olympics this year, I do not understand breakdancing as an Olympic sport. I understand breakdancing. I get it. It is dancing in general is a hefty workout and takes a lot of athleticism, but an Olympic sport.
That's what that and the like synchronized swimming, I feel like it's just too artistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When sports are like racing, okay, this person had the fastest time, they win. Like, how do you judge, I don't know, artistic stuff like that?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so my choice, I'm going to say breakdancing.
Okay, Holly, what do you have?
Okay, I have a question first. What is trampoline?
They jump on a trampoline and they do flips. Like gymnastics, but on a trampoline.
Just trampoline.
That might be mine.
That's also a dumb one. I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seems like kind of hobby horse to me, you know?
Yeah, like just
horse-esque.
Just do gymnastics. Just ride a horse.
Just do gymnastics, or just make it be like a category of gymnastics, like trampoline tricks or something. Actually, I don't know. I think it's gotta go.
Wait,
it's gotta go. It's just very cringy.
You guys go on your Google really quick and just type in trampoline Olympics, go to images, just type in those two words, trampoline Olympics, go to images, and just look at it. It's just pictures of the people like flying in the air and they're all like,
oh, that's no. No. That looks like you're diving. What? No.
You put me on one of those giant super bouncy trampolines, I could do a backflip too.
Y'all, I could lay in the air like that. Come on now. Stop it. You got to stop that right now. I can
right. Holly could do this. Okay, Holly's going to go to the 2028 Olympics as a trampolinist. We're going to see
She could do it.
Let's do
look at these people. I could do this. I'm sorry, no disrespect, but like disrespect. These are just little kids in their backyard that was like, you know, I wish this was a sport, and they were like, it can be, you know.
We get enough people together, we can go to the Olympics.
Listeners, let us know what you think shouldn't be in the Olympics this year. Curious.
Yeah, if you stuck around for the overtime, tell us what you think should be eliminated and why. And if it's trampoline, you're right.
Yeah, fight us if you need to about trampoline, breakdancing, and shooting.
And with that, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you want even more information, including photos of the case, you can check out our blog on overmydeadpod.com. Be sure to leave us a review wherever you're listening to this, and check us out on social media at Over My Dead Pod. We will see you next week with another case. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.